Okay, so let's paint the picture. You're feeling in your body right now intense overwhelm. Maybe you've had a day where you've just had a background mood of feeling off. And then add to that concoction an argument with somebody close to you, or maybe the fact that you're not working as much as you wish you were. You're not meeting the cultural expectation in some way. Maybe you screwed up in a friendship or a relationship, and the narrative is you have to be socially confident, you have to be on top of the world or something, and your body is feeling discord. Oh yeah, and then let's add in some masala as well, that you're a bad spiritual seeker as well. You're not as clear as you should be on recognizing awareness. You're never going to amount to anything through this whole spiritual practice. Let's chuck in all those ingredients. What do you do in this situation? Well, I'll walk you through somewhat of a process that you can mold to your own needs if you need to. But this is sort of how I would approach it and how I would recommend meeting it. So, step one, if you can get out of such of a situation where you're really triggered by communicating authentically and vulnerably, by dropping your attention into your body to the best that you can to those around you, and just say, hey, you know what, I need support now, but if you can't give it, I need you to hold me. So you're not gonna just use the pointing of, okay, I'm just gonna rest as awareness. I mean, there is value in that, but I think that doesn't meet the demands of this degree of reactivity in the nervous system. Don't get me wrong, feel free to use inquiry and trust your intuition. That might lead you to some deep places. Like if you want to use self-inquiry, go ahead. But this is where the real human, embodied, vulnerable, gritty part is of this process. Like, don't try to spiritualize your way out of feeling the deep vulnerabilities of your body. Trust yourself in this instinct, in this place. Trust your instinct all the way, I would suggest. But also, reach out to those around you. Do you have a partner? Do you have a friend you can call? Do you have somebody where you can drop the spiritual front to, of needing to have it together, of being so nice and perfect and vulnerable, that you can speak with, who will just listen to you, not try to fix you, not try to prove your experience wrong, but who will just sit with you, breathe with you, and listen to you. You could even ask them, hey, would you mind I'm really struggling right now, and this is really difficult for me to do, and I'm worried I'm gonna look like a weakling or a fool, but would you be open to sitting with me right now, not trying to fix me, and then just listening to everything that's on my mind right now? Can you do that? If yes, then, and you trust this person, you know instinctively that they're not going to try to do anything weird with you, then just go from there. Feel your body and feel what's going on, foregoing any non-dual spiritual concepts, and just speaking your truth as to what's going on for you. Let yourself cry, let yourself get angry if you need to. That sort of relating, that sort of vulnerable, authentic relating, is very much missing in our culture, unfortunately, which is very tragic. But if you can do that, that's incredibly powerful and shows an immense amount of courage and warriorhood to cut through the delusions and the unspoken barriers between humans. Now, if you can't do that, if you're just sitting in your room curled up in a fetal position, here's what I would recommend. At this point, depending on how stressed you are, I'm going to assume you're completely overwhelmed. There's probably a very thick narrative, and there's probably a lot of thoughts bouncing around in your mind that are very easily believed because of the magnitude of the sensation that you're experiencing, the intensity of it. So the thoughts might be saying, you're never going to amount to anything. You're doomed to keep feeling this way. There's no way out. You've been here before. You've tried something before. Spiritual practices never work. I'm a bad meditator. Something along these lines. Something that reinforces the downward spiral. Whatever it is for you, just see how much curiosity you can bring, almost as if you were being paid $5,000 to monitor your experience and write up a detailed report as to what's going on in this experience. So we're using the Manju Shri's sword, the Buddhist deity that uses a sword to cut through delusion, to get a little bit of space from your emotional experience. And practically speaking, for me, I remember this feeling like when this sort of stuff would come online, it would be all over the place. So I would be lost in thought, and then I would be feeling an intense emotion, and then it would be bouncing around like, and then it's like I don't know where I am in that. I can't keep up with all the emotional experience that's going on. But the key is to get an access point, and by using that sword to cut through and get a little bit of space, you're gaining access. And what does gaining access mean? It means having your attention in something tangible that's happening right now. So maybe the thought is, I'm not a good meditator. Put your attention right into that thought, I'm not a good meditator. And maybe there's a sensation coupled with it as well. You can feel it in the body. What does it feel like in your body to not be a good meditator? Slow down. So it'll look like this. It's like all these things going off, helplessness, despair, but you're writing a 5,000 word report on this. So you're not going to buy into that as much. You're going to slow down. You're going to grab that thought, I'm not a good meditator. So rather than you're like, okay, I'm going to grab that one. I've got access. I'm going to pull it into my body. And I'm just going to feel that feeling. Being mindful, are there any other thoughts? Oh, I can't handle this. Nothing ever works for me. Just see it and just notice those. That's your next access point. Grab that. Pull that in. Sit with that. Be especially curious if there's any sensation that you would otherwise feel is overwhelming or is just simply too much. Right? You're bringing investigative curiosity to this. So let me be with that. Can I actually be with this? What if I had to experience this for the rest of my life unless I actually met it full on face to face and I didn't hide from it anymore and face the real possibility of overcoming something like this? Now, once you have access, once you're in the body, especially being in the body being the key word, you're feeling the discomfort, because often what happens is in this space, the reason it feels like 50 million things are going on at once is because we're unable to stay in the body. Once we're in the body, once we have access, once we're grounded in something, we've sunken our teeth into some sort of emotional object. It's key to really try to cultivate a feeling of compassion toward this piece, and that you might feel so distant from that, you might feel so impossibly disconnected from compassion, depending on how intense the sensation is. Like you just want it to be get the fuck away. I don't know, I'm so sick of feeling this. Depending how intense that pain is, it will determine how difficult it may be to connect to compassion, but you definitely have within you, no matter what you're feeling, no matter how intense the situation, you're able to feel this. For example, people who are in world wars, who are in really horrific situations, there are people who come out of that with an optimistic attitude, even like blind optimism, because it resets the parasympathetic nervous system toward one of more compassion. If you just have a blind optimism, you're already getting a leg up. So can you cultivate any form of compassion, no matter what that looks like to you? You may even be against bringing compassion because you may have heard non-dual messages or something that there's no one to do anything. There's no the one who's compassionate is just a delusion. The sense of there being someone, an agent who could even coddle and give compassion towards such a sensation or an emotion, is an illusion. So how's that working out for you? I think it's okay. What I've had to learn, because I've had these doubts, is it's okay. It truly is okay just to get a little bit of leverage. Nothing needs to be rejected in final analysis. Not even thoughts, not even feelings of being a self. So let's welcome it all in, and let's leverage what we can use in consciousness to cut through our suffering in a compassionate way. Okay, so we've got access, we're feeling that. We're not buying into the subtle doubts and spiritual terminology we may have heard that will be particularly poignant, particularly believable. And we're just feeling in the body. At this point, if you have access, if you're feeling grounded enough in the body, the next step would be to broaden out your awareness. So let your attention become more spacious. And a good prompt for that is imagine you're listening to something off into the distance. Imagining you're listening to ships in the harbor far off into the distance, just with their gentle bells. You can barely hear them, but you're letting your attention dilate outwardly. And you might notice that when you dilate your attention outwardly with all of this going on, it gives you a broader perspective. It's like you're in the weeds, but now when you dilate out your attention, you're like up on the hill looking down on the cane field. Previously you were in the cane, and now you're up on the hill overlooking it all. And don't mind the mental image. You don't need to use that mental image, but the important thing is it feels like that. You're feeling like you have a full panoramic awareness of all of the sensations that are going on in experience. And you might even, at this point, use breath a little bit. See if you can breathe into those sensations. So that's like step 2.5. Use breath to amplify the volume of the sensations that you're now sitting with, that you're now face to face with. You're not avoiding anymore. You're not believing thoughts like I can't handle this is too much. You're noticing if those sensations are arising, and you're bouncing between them intuitively to stay with what is most uncomfortable in the situation, and infusing it with as much compassion as you can muster with spaciousness. And just breathe. If you could spend 5 to 10 minutes breathing in that space, just breathing, you're undoing light years of conditioning. Because, what other people would do, no blame to them, but it's just been the way, is to blame somebody else for feeling the way they feel, distract themselves, or just project it out onto the world and cause violence or maladaptive behaviors. But when you're doing this work, in these small little moments, if you can just be with the sensation for 2 minutes, 3 minutes, or 30 seconds even, 5 seconds, If you can just do that and keep doing that with compassion, bringing as much compassion, breathing into it, letting the body move, letting it cry, letting it punch a pillow if it needs to, letting it just let something out, just authentically giving it what it needs. You can even ask these sensations, what do you need from me right now? What do you deeply need? What would it look like to grandfather this sensation? If I was sitting with a grandfather who was deeply wise, or grandmother, if you relate to that more, if you're a woman, or if you're a man who related to their grandmother, what would it look like to be grandmothered or grandfathered right now? What would that feel like? And wrap that sensation in that loving attention. You can see how this is not very non-dual, right? This is not the traditional non-dual approach of, oh, just rest as awareness, bro. All of your sensations will be looked after. That approach kind of pisses me off in a way. But look, we're not neglecting awareness here, because we're opening up to the possibility and using gentle inquiry to stay true to who am I? Yet we're still not neglecting this very human, gritty, real aspect of our experience. So we've got access, we're feeling deeply, we're bringing as much compassion as we can, we're opening up to more spaciousness, and we're breathing very deeply and allowing and using intuitive inquiries. So from this place, we can do shadow work. We can grab what is the loudest in our experience, what is saying no the loudest. Or we could even bring up the situation, if we have enough groundedness in our experience at this point, we could bring up the situation that set us off in the first place. So for example, if you had an argument with your partner, you might bring up a mental image of them, seeing them, and actually being curious, like we're doing this 5,000 word essay. I want to feel what it felt like to be enraged in that moment with curiosity and love. So you can bring up mental images and keeping this energy of spaciousness, being grandfathered, grandmothered, while looking at this emotion and feeling that love from your experience. And like, okay, there's this rage, or there's this numb, queasy feeling in my heart right now, and it always comes up, and I hate feeling this way. What is that? What is that? Wow, can I be with it? What does it have to say? So here's the shadow work. What would it say if it had a voice? Right, and it's just like you're looking at it through, you're not in it so much, but you're not pushing it away. It's not the view that you're looking out of, but you're holding it right in front of you gently. And just saying, what would you say? I can't bear the fact that they just said what they said. I hate it. It's too much. And then just trust your instinct. I'm not going to go too much deeper like I would in a session with somebody, because it really depends on the movement, because I would want you to trust your instinct either way. But just dialogue with that sensation. Dialogue with it. Give it a voice. What would it say? What are you protecting? What does this need? What's at risk if I were to do X, Y, Z? What do you need to say to this person? What do you need to do? What do I need to do? What do I need to support you with? These sorts of questions, trusting your instinct. There's no right or wrong. And what we're doing here is we're regulating the nervous system. We're being real with ourselves. We're not spiritually bypassing. We're not using teachings like just rest as awareness to avoid the real emotions like rage, sadness, joy. We're not avoiding it anymore. We're not playing that game because that hasn't been working. Or at least it didn't work for me. Always trust yourself. not what any spiritual teacher says. So if you're resonating with this, if there's still a sense of reserved doubt, like, I don't know, man, like, I've got to realize non-doership, or I'm not going to get awakened this way, or if there's any reservations like that, just feel them. Just feel them. Let them pass through just like any other emotion. Come back to what's primary, what's here, what's really here. And then if you want to do inquiry from here, if you want to do self-inquiry, like who was even experiencing that? What is time? What if there wasn't time? What is right here? Who am I? Where is this? Go for it. But once we have access, once we're loving ourselves compassionately, we have a much deeper access to those inquiries that don't feel forced and contrived, that don't feel disconnected. I had a client give me a testimonial that said, and I think this is pretty apt to how I felt as well, but it was like, I didn't realize, something just felt a little bit off, and I didn't realize what it was until I did emotion work and shadow work with you. And I'm like, yeah, that's it. That's it, man. That's how it felt for me too. Meet all of yourself. And I hope this video helped you in some way, because I've been in those places and you're not alone. And you can handle it. And it's going to get better. Okay, a lot of love to you. Have a good day. From Sri Lanka.